There are moments in life when everything becomes quiet, when the noise fades, the crowds disappear, and even the voices you once relied on seem distant. In those moments, it's easy to believe that nothing is happening, that God has forgotten your name or set your story aside. But the truth is far deeper and far more powerful. Silence is not abandonment. Silence is where God does some of His greatest work. It is the place where He prepares you, not for small things, but for blessings so visible that no one will be able to deny His hand upon your life. Think about how God has always worked. Before He revealed His power publicly, He worked privately. Before the victory, there was a wilderness. Before the crown, there was a cross. God has never rushed His process, because what He is shaping inside you matters more than what He is about to place around you. In the silence, when no one is clapping for you, God is building a strength that applause could never give. He is training your heart to depend on Him alone, not on approval, recognition, or validation from people. Silence strips you. It removes distractions. It exposes motives. When life slows down and prayers seem unanswered, you begin to see what truly drives you. Do you still trust God when no one sees your faith? Do you still obey when there is no reward in sight? These quiet seasons are not accidental. God allows them because He knows that public blessings require private preparation. If He elevated you too soon, the weight of the blessing could crush you. So He hides you, not to harm you, but to protect you. In the silence, God trains your character. Talent can open doors, but character keeps them open. Many people want the platform without the process, the reward without the refining. But God is not interested in temporary success. He is shaping you for lasting impact. In these unseen moments, He teaches you humility so that pride will not destroy you later. He teaches you patience so you won't quit when challenges come. He teaches you faith so you won't panic when the blessing attracts opposition. There is a reason seeds grow underground. No one celebrates a seed while it is buried, yet that burial is not the end, it is the beginning. In the dark soil, unseen by human eyes, growth is taking place. Roots are forming, strength is developing, and if someone were to dig that seed up too early, they would destroy what was meant to flourish. In the same way, God allows you to be hidden, because premature exposure can sabotage destiny. What looks like delay is actually protection. You may feel overlooked right now. You may wonder why others seem to move ahead while you remain stuck in the same place. But God is not comparing your timeline to anyone else's. He is working according to His perfect plan for your life. What He has prepared for you requires a certain level of spiritual maturity, and that maturity is formed in quiet obedience, not loud success. When no one is watching, when no one is praising, when no one is supporting, God is watching closely. And He values faithfulness in secret more than performance in public. Silence also teaches you to hear God's voice more clearly. When the world is loud, His whisper can be drowned out. But in quiet seasons, you begin to recognize His guidance with greater clarity. You learn to discern His direction, to trust His leading even when it doesn't make sense. This is essential, because when the blessing arrives, there will be many voices offering opinions. If you have not learned to recognize God's voice in silence, you may lose your way in the noise of success. God is also healing you in the silence. Some wounds cannot be healed in front of an audience. Some lessons cannot be learned in comfort. In those lonely moments, God confronts the pain you've avoided, the fears you've buried, and the doubts you've hidden. He doesn't expose them to shame you. He reveals them to heal you. He is removing what would sabotage the blessing He is preparing to give you. If those broken places remained untouched, they could turn a gift into a burden. Many people mistake silence for rejection. They assume that because doors are closed, God has said no. But often a closed door is God saying, not yet. He knows what you don't. He sees dangers you can't see. He understands the future impact of today's decisions, so He slows you down, holds you back, and keeps you hidden until the time is right. When God finally opens the door, it won't be because you forced it open, but because He unlocked it Himself. And when that moment comes, when the blessing is revealed, people will be surprised. They will wonder where you came from, how it happened so suddenly. But it won't be sudden at all. It will be the result of years of quiet preparation, unseen obedience, and uncelebrated faith. The silence will have done its work. You will be strong enough to carry what God gives you, humble enough to honor Him with it, and wise enough to steward it well. So don't despise the quiet season. Don't rush what God is carefully shaping. Don't measure your worth by visibility or applause. If God has placed you in silence, it is because He trusts you with what is coming next. Stay faithful. Stay obedient. Stay patient. What God is preparing in secret will soon be revealed in a way everyone can see, and when it happens, you'll understand that the silence was never empty. It was full of purpose. There are seasons when it feels like nothing is changing on the outside, when your prayers seem to echo back in silence and your efforts appear unnoticed. You look around and see others advancing, being celebrated, stepping into opportunities, while you remain in the same place, doing the same faithful things with no visible reward. In those moments, doubt whispers that you are falling behind or being forgotten. But what you cannot see is often where God is doing His deepest work. Hidden growth always comes before public blessing, because God builds from the inside out, not the other way around. Everything God creates follows this divine order. Before a tree bears fruit, it must grow roots. Before a building rises high, its foundation must go deep. Before a life can carry influence, it must develop integrity. God knows that what is visible cannot last unless what is invisible is strong. So He allows seasons where your progress is concealed, where the work He is doing in you is more important than what He is doing through you. These are not wasted years, they are invested years. Hidden growth is uncomfortable because it demands faith without evidence. It requires you to trust God when there are no signs, no applause, and no confirmation from people. Anyone can believe when blessings are obvious, but real faith is forged when obedience continues in the dark. God watches how you respond when the harvest hasn't come yet. Do you remain faithful when there is no recognition? Do you continue to pray when answers are delayed? Do you keep serving when no one notices? This quiet consistency is what prepares you for visible fruit later. Many people want the blessing without the becoming. They want doors to open without understanding what it takes to walk through them wisely. But God loves you too much to expose you before you are ready. If He revealed the blessing too soon, it could damage you rather than bless you. Success magnifies what already exists inside a person. If insecurity is hidden there, success will amplify it. If pride is hidden there, success will expose it. That is why God often keeps growth hidden. He is cleansing, correcting, and strengthening your inner life so that when the blessing appears, it won't destroy you in the hidden season. God is teaching you discipline. He is training you to show up when motivation is gone. He is teaching you to trust His word over your feelings. These lessons may not feel exciting, but they are essential. Public moments are sustained by private habits. What you do consistently in secret determines how you stand when the spotlight comes. God is building spiritual muscles in you through repetition, patience, and perseverance. Hidden growth also protects you from comparison. When progress is unseen, you are less tempted to measure your journey against someone else's success. God's plan for your life is unique, and comparison can distort your purpose. If you move forward at someone else's pace, you might miss the lessons designed specifically for you. God allows you to grow quietly so you can mature without distraction, so your identity, thank you, is rooted in Him rather than in competition with others. There is also a sacred intimacy in hidden seasons. When no one else understands what God is doing in your life, you are drawn closer to Him. Your relationship with God deepens, not because of blessings, but because of trust. You learn to rely on His presence rather than His gifts. This kind of intimacy cannot be produced in public success. It is formed in private surrender, where prayers are raw, tears are honest, and faith is refined. People often assume that visible success is the proof of God's favor. But Scripture shows again and again that God's favor often looks like obscurity before it looks like influence. Those He used greatly were often hidden for long periods of time. They were shaped, tested, and prepared in places no one celebrated. When God finally revealed them, it was clear that the preparation had been worth it. The fruit lasted because the roots were deep. Hidden growth can feel lonely. It can feel frustrating. It can feel unfair. But loneliness is often the space where God's voice becomes clearest. In isolation, distractions fade and purpose becomes sharper. God is aligning your desires with His will. He is removing attachments that would pull you off course later. What feels like restriction now is actually preparation for freedom later. And make no mistake, hidden does not mean stagnant. Growth is happening even when you cannot measure it. Every prayer you pray in faith, every act of obedience. Every moment you choose trust over fear is adding strength to your foundation. Just because the fruit hasn't appeared yet does not mean the seed isn't growing. The soil is doing its work, and God is overseeing every detail. When the time comes for the blessing to be revealed, it will not need explanation. People will see the result, but they won't see the nights you prayed, the temptations you resisted, the patience you practiced, or the tears you cried in private. They will call it sudden, but you will know it was slow, steady, and intentional. God's timing will make sense then, even if it doesn't now. So do not despise the hidden season. Do not rush what God is carefully forming. Stay faithful in what looks small. Keep growing where no one is watching. Because when God decides it's time for the fruit to appear, the blessing will speak for itself, and the hidden growth will be revealed in a way that brings Him glory. There comes a point in every journey of faith when waiting becomes heavier than the struggle itself. You have prayed, believed, stayed faithful, and yet the answer has not arrived. Days turn into months, months into years, and the silence begins to feel like denial. Questions rise in your heart, not because you lack faith, but because you are human. You begin to wonder if you misunderstood God, if the promise was ever real, or if the moment has already passed you by. But what feels like delay is often something far greater. Divine timing at work in ways you cannot yet see. God has never been late, and He has never acted randomly. Every moment in His plan carries purpose. When He allows waiting, it is not because He is unwilling, but because He is intentional. He sees the entire picture, not just the moment you are standing in. While you see the delay, God sees alignment. He is arranging circumstances, preparing people, and shaping outcomes so that when the blessing comes, it will be complete, sustainable, and unmistakably from Him. Delay exposes where we place our trust. When things happen quickly, it is easy to believe. But when the answer takes time, faith is tested. Waiting reveals whether we trust God only for His gifts or whether we trust Him for His wisdom. In these seasons, God is teaching you to rest in His character, not in your timeline. He is inviting you to surrender control, to let go of the urge to rush what He has already scheduled. Divine timing also protects you from receiving blessings before you are ready to handle them. There are things you have asked God for that would overwhelm you if they arrive too soon. You may not see it now, but God does. He knows the weight of what He is preparing to place in your hands. So He delays, not to frustrate you, but to fortify you. He is strengthening your faith, deepening your patience, and refining your discernment so you can steward the blessing wisely when it arrives. Waiting can feel like standing still, but spiritually, it is often the season of greatest growth. While you wait, God is reshaping your desires. Sometimes what you want initially is not what you truly need. Through delay, God purifies your motives and aligns your heart with His will. By the time the answer comes, you are not the same person who first asked the question. You are wiser, humbler, and more grounded in faith. Divine timing also involves other people and circumstances beyond your control. God's plan rarely involves only one person. While you wait, He may be working in someone else's life, preparing them for their role in your story. He may be opening doors that cannot open yet, or closing doors that would lead you away from His purpose. What feels like inactivity is often a complex network of divine orchestration taking place behind the scenes. Impatience tempts us to force outcomes. When waiting becomes uncomfortable, we are tempted to take shortcuts, to compromise, to settle for less than what God promised. But forced blessings often bring unintended consequences. What God gives in His timing comes with peace. What we take in our timing often comes with regret. Delay is God's way of saving you from paths that look right but lead to unnecessary pain. In the waiting, God is teaching you obedience without guarantees. He is showing you how to walk by faith and not by sight. This kind of obedience strengthens your spiritual foundation. It prepares you for moments when you will need to trust God under pressure, when the blessing attracts responsibility, opposite, or scrutiny. Without this season of waiting, you might not have the endurance to stand firm later. It is important to remember that God measures time differently than we do. What feels long to us is brief in eternity. His timing is not influenced by urgency or fear. It is guided by wisdom and love. He is not withholding good from you. He is preserving the fullness of it. When God finally moves, it is never halfway. His answers are complete, intentional, and perfectly placed. Waiting also teaches you gratitude. When blessings come quickly, they are often taken for granted. But when you have waited, prayed, and trusted through uncertainty, the blessing is received with humility and thanksgiving. You recognize it as a gift, not an entitlement. This gratitude keeps your heart aligned with God long after the answer arrives. One day, you will look back on the season you wanted to escape and realize it was the season that prepared you the most. The delay will make sense. The unanswered prayers will be revealed as redirections. The waiting will be seen as protection. And you will understand that God's timing was not only right, it was perfect. So if you are waiting today, do not lose heart. God has not said no. He has said wait. Trust that He is working even now, aligning every detail according to His will. Hold on to faith, remain obedient, and rest in His timing, because what God has promised will arrive exactly when it is meant to. There is a pattern in the way God works. Many people misunderstand. We often assume that once God decides to bless us, the path will immediately become smooth and the elevation will come quickly. But God is far more concerned with who you are becoming than with where you are going. Before He lifts you up, He looks deep within you. He examines the places no one else sees, the thoughts no one else hears, and the attitudes that quietly shape your decisions. This is why refinement always comes before elevation. God does not raise what He has not first refined. Refinement is rarely comfortable. It feels like pressure, correction, and sometimes even loss. In these seasons, God begins to strip away what cannot go with you into the next level. Pride that hides behind confidence, fear that disguises itself as wisdom, and doubt that quietly limits obedience are all exposed. God does not remove these things to shame you. He removes them to protect you. Elevation magnifies everything within a person, and God will not elevate what will eventually destroy you. Many people desire influence without understanding the cost of responsibility. When God refines you, He is teaching you how to carry weight without becoming arrogant and how to remain humble without becoming insecure. He allows situations that stretch your patience, challenge your reactions, and test your trust. Each moment of refinement is shaping your spiritual maturity. What feels like resistance is often God strengthening your character. God often uses opposition as a refining tool. When you face misunderstanding, criticism, or rejection, your response reveals what still needs to be refined. Do you react in anger or respond in grace? Do you seek revenge or trust God to defend you? These moments are not wasted. They are lessons that prepare you for greater responsibility. A person who cannot handle correction cannot handle elevation. Refinement also involves surrender. God will ask you to release control, to trust Him when you would rather take charge. This is difficult because control feels like safety. But true security is found in obedience, not control. When God refines you, He teaches you to rely on His guidance rather than your own understanding. This surrender deepens your faith and strengthens your dependence on Him. Fear is another area God refines. Fear often keeps us small, cautious, and comfortable, but elevation requires courage. God will place you in situations where fear surfaces so it can be confronted. He does not remove fear instantly. He teaches you to move forward despite it. Each step of obedience in the face of fear builds confidence rooted in faith rather than in circumstances. Doubt is also refined in these seasons. Doubt does not always mean disbelief. Sometimes it means uncertainty about self-worth or purpose. God addresses these doubts by reminding you of your identity in Him. Through His Word and through experience, He shows you that your value is not based on performance but on His calling. This understand. Ding is essential before elevation, because without it, success can become your identity and failure your destruction. Refinement often happens in obscurity. God does not usually refine people in public. He works quietly, patiently, and intentionally. In these hidden seasons, He teaches you to obey without recognition and to remain faithful without reward. This kind of faithfulness proves readiness for promotion. When God elevates you, He wants your motivation to be service, not status. It is important to understand that refinement is a sign of God's investment in you. He refines what He intends to use. He disciplines what He loves. If God is correcting you, shaping you, and challenging you, it means He sees potential that must be protected. The process may feel slow, but it is precise. God does nothing randomly. When the time for elevation comes, you will not be surprised by the responsibility, because the refinement will have prepared you. You will have learned how to stay grounded in humility, how to trust God under pressure, and how to lead with integrity. Elevation will not change who you are. It will reveal who God has been shaping all along. So do not resist the refining process. Do not grow bitter in the fire. Trust that God knows what He is doing. What He is removing now is making room for what He will release later. Let Him refine you completely. Because when God lifts you up, it will be done in a way that honors Him and blesses others. There is a kind of obedience. See, that is easy. The kind that happens when the path is clear, when the reward is visible, and when people are watching. But there is another kind of obedience that is far more powerful and far more costly. The obedience that happens in obscurity. This is the obedience no one applauds, no one affirms, and no one even notices. Yet this quiet faithfulness is often the very thing that releases breakthrough. God pays close attention to what you do when there is no audience, because obedience in hidden places reveals the true condition of the heart. Obscurity tests motive. When no one sees your effort, you are forced to answer an important question: why am I doing this? If the answer is recognition, approval, or reward, obscurity will drain your strength. But if the answer is obedience to God, obscurity will deepen your faith. God uses these seasons to purify your motives, to teach you to serve Him for who He is, not for what He gives. This kind of obedience is rare, and because it is rare, it is powerful. Many people believe breakthrough comes from talent, strategy, or connections. While those things may play a role, spiritual breakthrough is often unlocked through simple, consistent obedience. Doing what God asks, even when it seems small, even when it feels insignificant, creates momentum in the spiritual realm. God responds not to the size of the action, but to the sincerity of the obedience. A heart that says yes to God in private is a heart he can trust in public. Obedient. E in obscurity builds endurance. When you continue to obey without visible results, your faith becomes resilient. You learn to stand firm when feelings fluctuate and circumstances remain unchanged. This endurance is essential because every breakthrough comes with resistance. Without endurance, you may reach the door but lack the strength to walk through it. God strengthens you in obscurity so that when opportunity appears, you are ready to step forward with confidence. Hidden obedience also sharpens discernment. When there are no external voices cheering you on, you become more sensitive to God's direction. You learn to recognize His promptings, to respond quickly, and to trust His guidance even when it leads you away from comfort. This discernment protects you from distractions and detours later. The more faithful you are in small, unseen acts, the clearer God's direction becomes. Obedience in obscurity also shapes humility. Success has a way of inflating ego if humility is not firmly rooted. When you serve without recognition, humility becomes a habit rather than an act. You learn to value faithfulness over fame and purpose over praise. This humility is not weakness, it is strength under control. It keeps you grounded when breakthrough finally arrives. There are times when obedience in obscurity feels pointless. You pray, serve, give, and trust, yet nothing seems to change. But God is never indifferent to obedience. Every act of faith is seen, recorded, and rewarded in His time. What looks like repetition to you is often preparation in God's eyes. Each moment of obedience adds another layer of readiness to your life. Breakthrough is rarely instant. It is often the result of accumulated obedience over time. The sudden change people see is usually the outcome of years of unseen faithfulness. God honors perseverance. He responds to hearts that remain faithful even when progress is invisible. Obedience in obscurity creates spiritual alignment, and when alignment is complete, breakthrough becomes inevitable. It is important to remember that obedience does not always make sense. God may ask you to do things that seem small, inconvenient, or unrelated to the promise you are waiting for. But obedience is not about understanding, it is about trust. Each step of obedience positions you closer to what God has prepared, even if you cannot yet see the connection. When breakthrough finally comes, it often arrives quietly at first. A door opens. An opportunity appears, a shift occurs, and in that moment you realize that nothing was wasted. Every unseen prayer, every quiet act of obedience, every moment you chose faith over frustration played a role in bringing you to this point. God's timing aligns with obedience in ways that cannot be explained, only experienced. So remain faithful in obscurity. Keep obeying even when no one is watching. Trust that God is working through every small act of faith, because obedience in hidden places is never forgotten by God. And when the breakthrough comes, it will be clear that it was released not by chance, but by faithfulness. There comes a moment in every life shaped by faith when preparation ends and revelation begins. For a long time, the work God has been doing is hidden, quiet, unseen, and often misunderstood. You know the battles you fought in private, the prayers whispered in the dark, the obedience that cost you comfort and recognition. Others may have overlooked you, doubted you, or even dismissed you. But when God decides the time has come, He does not announce it with explanations. He reveals it with results. Your breakthrough will speak for itself. God never reveals what He has not fully prepared. When the season of silence ends, it is not because you demanded it, but because God completed what He started in you. By the time the blessing becomes visible, you are no longer desperate for validation. You are anchored in purpose. You are no longer striving to prove anything to anyone. The work God has done inside you gives you a quiet confidence that does not need approval to stand strong. When God's blessing becomes visible, people often try to understand it through logic. They look for connections, advantages, or shortcuts. They ask how it happened and why now. But divine promotion cannot be explained by human reasoning. It carries a weight of favor that cannot be manufactured or imitated. When God opens a door, no explanation is required, because the evidence is undeniable. What makes this moment powerful is not just the blessing itself, but the way you carry it. Because of the process you've endured, you don't boast. You don't seek attention. You don't need to defend yourself. Your peace becomes your testimony. Your consistency becomes your credibility. Your humility becomes the clearest sign that this was God's work, not your own effort. People may remember the moment you were revealed, but they will never fully understand the journey that led there. They did not see the nights you questioned your own strength, the moments you wanted to give up, or the times you obeyed God when it cost you something. But God saw it all. And when He reveals you, He does so in a way that honors the process and glorifies His name. This is why God does not rush revelation. He waits until you can stand in it without being changed by it. Success has a way of revealing what is already inside a person. Because God has refined you, strengthened you, and grounded you, the blessing does not inflate you. It confirms you. It does not distract you from purpose. It aligns you with it. When God reveals His work in your life, resistance may still come. Not everyone will celebrate what God has done for you, but you won't need to fight for acceptance. Your life will speak louder than arguments. God's favor will create opportunities no opposition can shut down. The consistency of your walk will silence doubt more effectively than words ever could. This is also the moment when you realize that the silence was necessary. Without it, the revelation would not have been sustainable. Without the hidden seasons, the visible blessing would have been overwhelming. You begin to understand that every delay, every closed door, every quiet season played a role in shaping the outcome you are now living. And even in revelation, humility remains your covering. You remember where God brought you from. You remain sensitive to His voice. You stay obedient, knowing that the same God who revealed you is the one who sustains you. Revelation is not the end of the journey. It is a new responsibility. God reveals you not for applause, but for impact. So when your breakthrough comes, let it speak. Let your faithfulness tell the story. Let your peace answer the questions. Let your consistency silence the critics. You don't need to explain what God has done, because what He does openly will always confirm what He worked out in secret.